guest we have tonight, I'm very excited to talk to because I've been talking to him online for quite a while, and now it's time for us to actually communicate and get this idea out to the masses. So, before we bring him on, let me know if you can hear the levels. Eric, everybody in the chat room, if everything sounds good, we're ready to move forward so we can get this interview going. I think I'm ready on my end. All right. I believe we got Ty on the phone.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Alright, perfect.
I can hear you good on my end, so we'll let everybody who's listening let us know if there's having any issues. How you doing tonight, man?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. Just getting the show rolling. Like I said, I'm excited to talk to you because it's been a while that you've brought this idea to my attention, and I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to be very instrumental in spreading the ideas of agorism, which we're going to get into more in a bit, and helping independent entrepreneurs who are trying to get their projects out there, finding the right type of people. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience before we get into your project.
Okay. My name's Ty George. I'm the founder and creator of Manafest.IT. It's basically, long story short, it's an Agorist Social Network. Easiest way to kind of explain it is it's kind of like a Facebook meets eBay with facilitating payment methods like alternative currencies like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency. It's got all the typical features on it, but I'll go into that in a little bit. I'm from Southern Oregon, and it's an honor to be here.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you being here tonight. So let's get more into the specifics. Tell us more about what are the features that differentiate your site from, say, Facebook or any other social network.
Probably would be the market and its payment methods, and probably how you can preemptively define what I call the appropriations. So we'll take a little back step on that first, I guess. How does the government spend all the money they collect in taxes? They do it through appropriation committees, right? And that's a system of representation. And I kind of find it laughable that in the age of information, we need a system of representatives to represent our will and our intent. I mean, where are you located again?
I'm in Houston.
Houston, that's what I thought. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're having real-time communication from here to halfway across the country. So I don't think that taxes should be involuntary, and I don't think that. Well, I think that people, if they want to collectivize their money into pools, that's fine, and they could vote how to spend their specific money. That's okay because they're opting in and opting out. But with that being said, when people sell something on the market, on Manifest, they can preemptively define how they want to allocate their funds into 7 distinct pools, and they could say they want to dump like 5% of their revenue earned into their agricultural pool, right? Then later other people could prompt or request microfunding through notification. But basically the non-typical functions are the market, the appropriations and dynamic pools, and then the Agora, which is how people request the funding.
Before we break down that even further, because I want to hear more about these ideas, and like I said, I've heard them briefly through you, through our communications before, but what does Manifest offer that, compared to the typical social networks? So what are you offering on that end?
Like the non-typical functions?
Yeah, like what else, like what do you have comparatively to Facebook that's going to draw people away from Facebook and to your platform? Does it operate in a similar manner as far as having friends and things like that?
Yeah, you can do all the typical stuff like sharing statuses, friending people, creating groups, creating events, sharing pictures and videos, and blogging and discussion forums, and all the stereotypical stuff that you'd expect to see in a social network.
All right, so you're going to try to pull away some of the audience from Facebook. People are going to come to your network knowing that they can still meet new friends. They can still do all the typical stuff, share pictures, share statuses. And now you've mentioned a couple of things that are new to social networks that the audience may not be familiar or understand just yet. The marketplace. Let's get into that. What exactly is the market on your website?
Well, every user that signs in on Manifest, whether or not they're signing in with their Facebook account or if they're just creating a brand new account, they can actually basically get a vendor profile. Essentially, they can post assets for sale, like products, goods, and services and files, and then other users can go and purchase them with various payment methods. So it's like an e-commerce for everybody.
So what are some of the payment methods that you are accepting? I'm imagining you're already on Bitcoin, Litecoin.
Yeah, Bitcoin already is in there through using basically BitPay. That's the easiest way to get it off the ground. Litecoin is the next. Then there's going to be kind of a barter type system where people can offer up assets to exchange directly, and then also some sort of maybe like pay it forward type variable off that. But then there's going to be a currency that I'm hoping to create. Basically, it's like a barter over time type currency called Mana, where people can opt into a relationship, and then basically define a limited amount of debt they're willing to go in directly with each other. And then there's points, which is kind of I guess you'd say an internal, just pointing system. The payment method's the only one currently functioning though is Bitcoin. That should be, obvious when people try and use it right now, but I just want to make sure that's clear at the moment.
So right now we got Bitcoin, you're working on Litecoin, you're working on some interesting ideas with barter. Can you go a little bit deeper explaining how Mana would work, the currency specifically to your website? You said barter over time. Can you break that down a little bit further?
Okay, so like people become friends, right? And then they could prompt each other, essentially saying, hey, I'm willing to go into, say, 150 mana, which that could equal, $150. I haven't set really the ratio yet, but some sort of agreed upon standard that they would define. And then they could set a timer if they wanted to, where it'd be like a Jubilee timer, to where after X amount of time the debt is wiped clean. And then, so say me and you opted into this relationship and we said, we'll go into $100 in debt max each of each other, right? So then me and you could spend right off the get-go $50 worth of credit in each other's store only. And then as the money flowed back and forth, you would never be able to spend more than $100 at any given time in the other person's store. So it's a barter over time. You're basically agreeing to ultimately exchange your assets, just not necessarily directly at that time.
Interesting. So, okay, let's go on to, you mentioned the appropriation pool and the way that, like as you said, give an example of currently we have appropriations committee here in the government, but those are basically being rendered useless when we have direct communication, peer-to-peer technology. How does the appropriation pools change the typical relationship of having an authority figure versus peer-to-peer?
It changes everything. Really, if your idea is good enough, then you can get funding for. Look at Kickstarter, what they were able to pull off. People post ideas on there, and ideas that would never get funding before are now getting funded, doing all sorts of crazy technology and like innovation. And there's other sites out there that do similar crowdsourcing techniques. I think the main difference with Manifest, though, it's kind of an inverted crowdsourcing model. People can essentially post their idea, and then it propagates out starting locally, requesting all the funders to surrender, X amount of dollars or whatever it may be, in an effort to, help fund that idea. Whether or not they thought it was a good enough idea, that's a different story. But obviously each person that's wanting to get ideas out of that, they would have to fill out a form that basically says what their idea is all about, and that's all on the site. But essentially nullifies, central authority.
So, okay, I have an idea to launch a community recycling initiative using 3D printers. And I set up an account through your website, and I go ahead and I set my radiuses for my pools here to be locally. I'm looking for funders and investors on a local level. And what you're saying is when I'm selling a product, I can allocate my certain percentages of my funds towards these different areas, towards other projects, towards individuals' projects. And so I could basically throw my project out there and hope that others find it interesting, find it worth their time, their money, and their effort, and then start getting funding through that in a similar way that Kickstarter works, but through this one network. So the idea being that you, as you said, that you eliminate centralization of production and allow individuals, entrepreneurs in the Agora to more easily find the funding that they're looking for. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, I think I like that.
Yeah, the major difference is how it propagates out towards people. On Kickstarter, it's categorized, and donators have to sift through ideas, and makes it really cumbersome for, actually funding the ideas. Look at how many people traffic Facebook. If you have the same technology set up for Facebook, or something similar, where it had enough people with foothold on it, you could fund ideas just via notification. That would be where the real power is at, the notifications, because the ideas would find potential donors.
Wow, so break down the different areas. I'm looking at here what you sent me as far as the pools that you can allocate funding. We've got energy, agricultural, educational, technological, healthcare, universal, and other. How do you see those different pools working out in this idea?
Main thing I always thought that you need to have people that are willing to have, create farms and create food. And then you need people that are, capable of actually education. And it seems like those are pretty well understood that, if we're going to have some sort of tax system, you need to have some sort of infrastructure. It should most definitely be voluntary, but it should still be sustainable, So if people allocated their funds into those specific pools, like, for example, the agricultural one, you could totally get your idea off the ground that could help your local community. And if everybody's in your local community helps fund it, then they would have, basically an equal share. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got that. So how does this tie into the Agora aspect of the website?
Well, when people want to apply for funding, they go into the Agora index, and they click on, submit a new idea to the Agora. They specify what pool they're wanting to pull from, and the details of their idea, how much money they need, the title. They confirm their local zip code, so that way, we know where to start the propagation from. But essentially, people can, I don't know, it's the hardest way, the easiest way to explain it is just look at it, but it makes it where you can actually pull a decent amount of money from a decent amount of people fairly quickly. The Agora is essentially the place where all those ideas are located and how you submit the ideas.
So if you're saying that basically at the same way that you receive Facebook notifications, you could receive a notification that's alerting you to a project looking for funding in your area?
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe in your regional area, depending on where it's coming from, the amount. So if you wanted $100 equivalent, and and then there was 10 people in your area that all had $10. They'd prompt them all for $10, but only say 50% of them actually said yeah. Then that remaining $50 that you have yet to get funds for would push out to the next radius tier, which would be the county that your zip code locates or in. It would prompt everybody in that same county for the remainder amount divided amongst people who had actual available funds to fund it. And then it would go on so forth with remainders. So there's 5 tiers of radius. There's city, county, state, nation, and then world. And ultimately, you could be like requesting 1 penny from like millions of people.
Nice, man. So, what do you think is as you're building this project, and we've been talking about it for a few months here, what do you think is the biggest block to actually getting people involved in this? Because I've heard your ideas on this, and we've talked to Morgan Rockwell last week about Bitcoin, Kinetics, and just great projects out there that are either looking for funding, such as what you're trying to help here, or they're just getting off the ground. But I feel like there's somewhat of a roadblock to that, and I don't know if it's people's reluctance to get off Facebook or to try new means of communicating and of funding different projects. Obviously, as you said, Kickstarter has been a success, so people are open to these ideas. But what do you feel personally has been the biggest block towards getting this project off the ground and to communicating it to people?
Honestly, probably just getting it in a user-friendly enough fashion. Part of it is just people are reluctant for change, so they want something that's familiar enough, but, an upgrade. So you got to make it worth their while, so to speak. You got to sell them on it. Everybody wants to be sold on something. So, as far as why they're still addicted to Facebook goes, though, I mean, that's just because it's the MySpace 2.0.
So what do you hope to accomplish with this, man? I mean, do you consider, obviously we've touched on some, I've talked about Agorist ideas, and we've explored that on my shows and on the videos. I think the audience here is somewhat familiar with the ideas of agorism and counter-economics and pursuing alternatives and breaking down these barriers. So as you said, we can get individuals who have projects and ideas the funding that they need to get these really powerful things going. But what do you think is going to be the ultimate, the outcome of this? If ideas like this continue to spread and your project goes, and then maybe through your project somebody else with an even bolder idea gets the funding that they need, and it goes on and on and on, where do you think this takes us?
Closer to freedom and liberty, hopefully. It can't be much worse than people with a central authority to initiate the use of violence. I mean, they have nukes, and they basically hold the world on hostage. Give us your taxes or we'll throw you in a cage, basically. That's not a world that I want to live or leave my son or anybody's son or daughter.
Yeah, plenty of good reason to keep trying to create change. Where can everybody find out more about this project, man, and get started on it? I want to help push this idea out there. I personally want to see if I can reach some other individuals and get some funding for some different ideas that I have, and maybe connect with others who need the help that I might be able to offer. So how can people get involved with this project?
Simply trying it out, getting feedback, letting people know. Just go to manafest.it. That's manafest.it. Just go to that website and help, spread the idea, really, more than anything.
Great, man. Well, before I let you go, I want to give you a chance to say anything you have to say to the audience. We're live with my audience, and we're also going to be on Liberty Movement Radio. So anything else that you want to leave the people with in regards to your project and the future of this?
Well, thanks for letting me be on the show, first off. And everybody out there, keep up the good fight. Truth always wins in the end. So, have a good one.
Thanks, Ty. That was Ty George of Manafest.IT. Check that out. It's MANAFest.IT. Manifest, mana being, as he said, the currency he's working on building within that site itself. So I don't know, I think it's a pretty interesting idea and one worth supporting. I mean, we have more than enough support for networks such as Facebook and things like that. It's time for us to give some support to individuals who are launching projects and other individuals such as Ty who are looking for the funding that they need. And I mean, it's not going to happen by sitting on your ass, unfortunately. If it did happen that easy,
then I wouldn't be here talking to you. I'd be out in the other room getting high, sitting on my ass, and waiting for things to change. But sorry to break it to you, change doesn't seem to happen that way. So it's time for you to get up off the couch or from behind the computer desk or off your bed or wherever you're lazing around and to start getting active to support others who are doing these things. And I really mean that. I think that agorism cannot succeed without support from the community. It's important for entrepreneurs who are launching ideas, whether it's new social networks with the opportunity to get funding and to get an alternative currency going, or Bitcoin kinetics, real world Bitcoin machines, or a Bitcoin academy, or 3D printers, whatever the idea is. I mean, unschooling, there's just thousands of ideas that pour out of my brain every single day, and a couple of them I latch onto and I try to push forth. And I know that you've got plenty of good ideas that maybe you haven't had the time or the opportunity to spend manifesting just yet. But it's only through our support of each other and projects such as this that these ideas will grow. So please check out Manafest, Manafest.IT, Manafest.IT. Thank you, Ty George, for that presentation. We are going to get into another song and then come back with some more info on Jeremy Hammond from my buddy Jeff Durkin of We Are Change, Connecticut. Jeff was going to come on the show last week, but there was some errors, so we're going to catch up with him. As some of you know, Jeremy Hammond, the hacktivist, was sentenced to 10 years in prison last week, and Jeff was there in trial and interviewed Chris Hedges and some other important people following the trial. So we're going to catch up with Jeff on that. Stay tuned. This is the Contra's Resistance Live. My name is Derek Bros, and we'll be right back.